Going to call to order the Thursday, April 26, 2012 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. And we're going to begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Jens, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the March 8th, 2012 P&Z meeting.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Minutes are approved. Third item, we have two items on consent tonight. The first, let me start by saying, has anybody on any of the items on the agenda, have any of the members of the P&Z had any ex parte communications whatsoever about any of the items on this? Speak now or forever
Yes.
hold your peace. You have?
Yes, I've spoken to Bill DeBrawl, and I've spoken to Stan Bowling in regards to the rock mine, and we came up with the conclusion that I should not vote. I should recuse myself, being that I'm in the mining business myself.
Very good. Anyone else? Oh, okay, now we'll move on to item number 3, which is the two items on consent. The first one is the request to modify the transit stop and shelter that Devasta Homes has put in, and the other one is a staff request for approval of a fence. Are there any objections, or is there any discussion from anyone on the Planning and Zoning Commission here?
Mr. Chairman, I think it would be proper for, if someone would want to discuss any of the matters on consent, to go ahead and pull the matters off consent. If there are no matters that should be pulled off consent or that the Commission desires to pull off, the Chair should simply entertain a motion to approve consent.
I'm asking for such a motion.
Motion to approve consent.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Both pass. We have two public hearings today. Let me catch up here for a second. The first is a how can I summarize this? This is a county-initiated request to redesignate many thousands of acres variously throughout the county to conservation and from their current zoning designation. And so we're going to open the hearing formally by asking the staff to go ahead and begin their presentation, please.
Thank you. Good evening. As you mentioned, this is a county-initiated request to change the land use designation for 1,171 acres of land owned by St. John River Water Management District from AG2, which is agricultural 2, up to 1 unit per 10 acres, to C1, which is conservation 0 density. Also to redesignate 350 acre owned by the county and has AG3 land use designation, which is 1 unit per 20 acre, to conservation 1 0 density. As far as the comprehensive plan, as you know, the comprehensive plan is required by a state, and the state approve our comp plan. I was just talking to Mrs. Johnson before the meeting. We did our first comp plan in 1990. Of course, not the first comp plan for the county, because we had some other, but first of these comp plan we did in 1990. And then since then, we did the evaluation and appraisal report twice, and each time we revised our comp plan in 1998 and 2010. With the comprehensive plan, we could change the plan, but based on our own policy, we could accept the application only twice a year, in month of January and month of July. This application that is in front of you, we received in January 2012. You are familiar with the process, but for the sake of audience, I'm going through this thing. Applicant would submit their application to the Community Development Department. Then we come before you, and you would recommend to the Board of the County Commissioner to transmit the amendment to state and regional reviewing agencies, and also to recommend to the board to approve the rezoning, or of course not, is your recommendation. Your recommendation would go to the Board of the County Commission and transmit our public hearing. The board would decide to send it to a state and review agency. If they do that, we send it to them. They would review it. They would send us their report. Then we go to a final public hearing before the board. And then if the board approves it, we send it back to the state, and that would be finalized. For the subject property that we are talking about, actually there are three separate properties. One, it is south of city of Fellsmere, which is right in this area. Again, if I could get this one to go. Okay, that doesn't cooperate. Okay, right here. It is south of the city of Fellsmere, and as it shows, it is a strip of the land which is zoned for agriculture, AG2. And this area is about 539 acres. Then we have this area here, which is almost 640 acres, which also is AG2 agriculture, and we change into conservation. And then the last one is this area here that owned by the county and has the AG3 land use designation. The proposed land use, if approved, would change all of them to conservation, which again, as you can see, the color of it changed from the green to the blue. Again, the zoning of all of these property right now, the two property of the St. John is A2, which is again agriculture up to 1 unit per 10 acre, and then for the county property is A3. Like any other land use amendment, we review these requests based on these criteria that listed here. Concurrency of public facility, consistency with the comprehensive plan, compatibility with surrounding area, and potential impact on environmental quality. As far as the concurrency, our own land and water regulation saying when we are not increasing the density or intensity, that project is exempt from concurrency. In this case, this property has either A2 land use designation, which could have up to 117 units on those two properties of the St. John, and then property that county owned could have 17 units on it. Or they could use for agriculture. Regardless, we are changing all of these things to conservation zero density. It means that we are removing all the density. Therefore, it is exempt from concurrency. As far as the consistency with comp plan, whatever we do needs to be consistent with the comp plan. And the most important policy in policy 14.3. And one of these four criteria should met in order for us to change the comp plan. In this case, since St. John, they bought this property for water conservation, and the county bought the property for the conservation. Therefore, the circumstances change, and we need to change the property land use designation to reflect that conservation. As far as the compatibility is concerned, again, as I mentioned, there is not going to be any development in this property because we are removing all the density. St. John using this property for water management, county use it for resource conservation. Therefore, overall, whatever we do is compatible with the surrounding area and actually enhance the surrounding area. Potential impact on environment. With the current land use designation, there are very limited protection of environmental quality of these property. But when we change them to conservation, we protect the whole thing as a conservation. Therefore, we're really enhancing the environmental aspect of these properties. A staff recommendation is that you recommend to the Board of the County Commissioner that we could transmit these land use amendment to the State and Review Agency, and also you recommend to the Board of the County Commissioner to approve the requested zoning. With that, that's my presentation. If you have any question, I would be more than happy to answer.
Thank you very much. We've been joined by Mr. Day. So, Mr. Day, as we're considering this, let me ask you right off the bat, have there been any ex parte communications you've had about this matter or any other matters that are going to be considered tonight? Okay. Thank you. Anybody have any questions?
Yes. Have you contacted the adjacent property owners and notified them that you plan to change this to conservation land?
Yes. First of all, we have a process that whenever there is a land use or rezoning, we notify everybody within 300 of the property, which we did. Also, even though that the St. John, they gave us their blessing to go ahead, we send them a copy of the agenda item. We also coordinate with City of the Fellsmere. Of course, City of Fellsmere, they have a land use designation to the north of the property one, which calls the Village of Fellsmere. They're going to have a bunch of mixed-use development with up to 2 units per acre. And the city also sent us a letter. They said they don't have any objection to this land use amendment.
And the individual property owners had no issue also?
We issued, we had about 10 property owners, surrounding property owners that we notified, and we have not received any comment from them.
Thank you.
On page 8, under the potential impact on environmental quality, the last sentence in the first paragraph says, by prohibiting most types of development on the sites, the proposed request will ensure that the environmental quality of the sites will be preserved. What type of development is permitted on the sites?
Any kind of development is a passive recreational development. That's all that they could do for any of these conservation land.
Mr. Chairman, Sasan, would you be able to build like a caretaker's house or that sort of structure on Con 1 property?
Yes, yes.
And is that a permitted use or would that be administrative?
Stan, do you know if that's permitted use?
Right. Housing for conservation management is permitted.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Well, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on this at all? If not,
I have a question. I maybe could have asked it before, but with going away with taking away the density, are we ever going to have a bank? So property like the densities could be transferred and then the county could sell them or apply them elsewhere?
We haven't done that with county-owned property before. We actually, what we do when we change a property conservation, we actually extinguish the development rights.
Yeah. Thanks.
if there's no more discussion, I'd entertain a motion.
I move to approve the motion as presented by staff.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. The next public hearing is related to the Cairns 80-acre sand mine. It's the consideration of a request by Dr. John Cairns to amend the road width requirements for mining haul road segments not used by the general public.
And, Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to point out that Commissioner Brugnano has submitted a conflict form, and he's announced that earlier. Since he has gone ahead and submitted that before any action has been taken by the board, he is free to participate in the discussion tonight, but not to vote.
Let's begin.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, for the record, Stan Bowling, County Planning Director. This particular request is a request to change the county's land development regulations. It's a pretty narrowly tailored request. And even though, as it's presented in staff's report, it is actually been filed by a private citizen who is under review right now for a particular mining application, The proposed change would affect more than just the individual's application. And so just to keep in mind that it does change, or proposes to change a county-wide regulation, even though it's going to be somewhat narrowly applied, it would apply to more than just the applicant's property. Just a little bit of recap, as I think all of you all are aware, that the county went through an entire year in 2008 of a comprehensive review of mining regulations. And that regulation review included coming up with standards for haul route road widths, as well as other standards for haul routes. But at that time, it was not contemplated that haul routes could include roads not open to the general public. At that point in time, all of the mining operations and applications were off of roads that were either maintained by the county, owned by the county, and open to the general public, and that was really the focus at that time. We've since had an application for a mining project that some of the haul route is actually on restricted roadways, not open to the general public, and the applicant made the case, and staff believes it is appropriate to take a look at coming up with a standard in that situation. It wasn't not a situation that was actually addressed in 2008. This is the future land use map, and as I think most of you all are aware, mining operations are allowed in all three of our agricultural zoning districts, and the agricultural designation areas are, we have some east of 95, but also a lot of lands in these two colors of green west of I-95 that could have mining operations at some point in the future, and in fact, the LDR applicants is out in the A2 area. And in the agricultural areas, there are some significant locations and acreages out here that are accessed off of restricted roadways. And this map gives an example of the St. John's Improvement District that's shading in an area west of I-95. And there are some roads within the district, within this agriculturally designated area, that is restricted in access. It's not used by the general public. An example of that is Oslo Road west of 106th Avenue. In that case, there is restricted access, and it's true of some of the other roads in the district. And the standards that we have now in the code are meant for the kind of the higher volume roadways open to the general public, 24 foot in width, whether it's unpaved or a paved roadway. And the Public Works staff is comfortable with some reductions in widths of roads that are restricted, that have lower traffic volumes, and generally are used just by property owners in the area that are very familiar with the roadway conditions. This is a picture of Oslo Road at 106th Avenue looking east. So what we're looking at here, you can see a pickup truck. There's at least a 24-foot width here, and this is open to the public all the way to this point. And it's graded by the county and maintained by the county, and you can see this is the type of road that was contemplated with the existing regulations that we have in place now. But if you kind of turn around from this camera angle and look at Oslo Road going west, it is restricted access. There's a narrower entrance here, and going a little bit further to the west, actually the road splits into two sides of the district waterway, which is going in this direction, going toward the west. And it is restricted access, low volume characteristics, mostly just owners of agricultural properties use these particular segments of roadway. The proposed amendment to the ordinance is narrowly focused. It's focused on haul route segments not open to the general public. It would allow the Public Works Director to approve a reduction from the 24-foot width standard. And the Public Works Director, of course, would look at traffic safety and traffic volumes and the type of trucks using the particular roadway. It would not affect any existing mines. Again, we have no existing mines that are approved or operated that don't access roads used by the general public. But it would apply to any future mines utilizing roads not used by the general public. And again, there would be a determination by the Public Works Director, and the mining application would come to the Planning and Zoning Commission, and there would be notice to owners of properties along the haul routes. No other part of the mining ordinance is proposed to be changed. This is the text. The next two slides, including this slide, is the text of the amendment. It's very simple. In the part of the code that now deals with haul route widths for unpaved haul routes, it sets the standard at 24 feet unless it's reduced by the Public Works Director for haul route segments not used by the general public. The same in the instance where a paved route is required due to anticipated high volume of traffic. But again, that width can be reduced for road segments not used by the general public. Staff's recommendation is that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend that the Board of County Commissioners adopt the proposed ordinance, and I'd be glad to try to answer any questions you might have, and I know the applicant is here as well.
Yeah.
Stan, I realize that it's a private road in the area we're talking about, but were the property owners notified and nobody had any objection?
No, in this case, again, not in terms of this LDR amendment. What will happen is, if this application moves forward, and we think it will, if the amendment is approved, a determination will be made by the Public Works Director, and then if the project is scheduled to come before the Planning and Zoning Commission, all the owners of property along the proposed haul route will be notified, as well as people within the area of the mine itself. So, yeah, the notice provision will not change at all for his application or any other applications.
Thanks.
At the point where it becomes restricted, where Oslo Road becomes restricted, is there a gate there, or is it just signage that says no trespassing?
I couldn't tell if they ever do gate it off itself or not. I mean, it's obviously very, very apparent. I walked through the entrance. I didn't drive the truck through the entrance myself. So I don't know if it's actually physically barricaded off or not. But it certainly, I can tell from all the tire tracks, there were a number of turnarounds right before you get there.
And who maintains the road from 106th to the mining site? Who maintains that section of the road?
The St. John's Improvement District maintains the roadways and the waterway there. And in fact, any applicant that would be using roadways maintained by the district would have to get a district permit as well and approval for the haul route.
Mr. Chairman, Stan, what is beyond the gate? Is there anything back there? Would anybody have any reason to be there?
Well, access to the agricultural properties, and certainly the district uses it to access what they maintain. I can't think of any homes anywhere in that particular area.
Are there homes from the gate to the east on Oslo?
As you get a little further east, in this case, there are some to the south and also to the north, but it's pretty far removed. So what would happen is the portion of the haul route that is restricted would have one standard width, but then the 24-foot standard would apply to any roads, in this case, once you got east of 106th Avenue.
Are there any 5-acre affidavits of exemption or any kind of developments like that from 122nd going east, or is it just basically sporadic single-family residences?
Okay, I'm missing the location here. First of all, the area that we're talking about is 1 unit per 10 acres, so you don't have 5-acre ranchettes out there. But we don't have any affidavits of exemption in any of these portions of the district that I can recall.
Okay, thank you.
So, Stan, you said in order for them to use the road, they have to get a permit?
Yes, from the district.
Okay.
And when you say district, you're talking about St. John's
Improvement District.
Improvement District.
Correct.
So the permitting process, once it goes through here, we go through them after this?
That's right. In other words, and what we would do in this situation is coordinate, and the applicant would want to do this anyway, coordinate with the district up front on what's an acceptable standard to them, what do they want to maintain, and then again, what's within the county's jurisdiction, road open to the public, the county standards would apply.
And it would all be subject to site plan approval.
Yeah.
It will be reviewed by staff and by the planning.
And anybody who's along the haul route will
have notice.
Will have a notice, and they'll, right.
Correct.
I understand. This is a public hearing. Does anyone from the public wish to speak? You just say your name and address for the record, please.
Okay, good evening, thank you. Aaron Bowles, 1835 20th Street. Thank you to Stan for this well put together presentation. We pretty much agree with everything he had to say. There's just a couple of items I'd like to add to that. Regarding the St. John's Improvement District, we do have those permits in hand for the revised haul route. Those are already done. We had another route that we were going previously that the county approved, which was along 122nd, but there were some issues with the existing bridge, so we opted to go this revised haul route, which was a recommendation of the district. We do have the St. John's River Water Management District permits as well. Regarding the access, I don't recall there being any gates, but there are cameras, and Bob Ulovich claims, and the district claims, that if anybody shows up on site, they yeah, they say they show up and chase them off. They say they do it all the time. People are out there fishing and whatnot, so they go out there and via their cameras that they have, chase them off. So it's a pretty tight site. But we can answer any other questions you may have.
Any other questions of the applicant's representative?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any more discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve staff's recommendation as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Commissioners' matters? Any? Planning matters?
Just a couple items, Mr. Chairman. First, just to update you all a little bit, the Board of County Commissioners took action consistent with your recommendations on the Bloomfield PD reapproval. They approved that. And the DeVasta notice of proposed change, the Waterway Village condition, and so they went with your recommendation on that. Also, coming up, and it's also on the agenda here to talk about a May meeting for the Planning and Zoning Commission. We have tentatively scheduled a public workshop for all the LDR amendments that you all have looked at in the 3 sets. Having a public workshop on May 11th, that's a Friday afternoon. We'll have information posted on the website. We have put together an email group of interested parties, we think, for that. And part of the information that we've prepared for the public workshop as well, as for you all and the board going forward, are some kind of cost-benefit analysis on some of the items. But we are also looking at having the meeting for the Planning and Zoning Commission on May 31st. I did poll members. Actually, we might not have been able to have mustered a quorum if we tried to meet the regular time on the 24th. There were some conflicts there. But for May 31st, the indication I got from that 6 of the 7 could meet that evening. Donna Keys could not, but she said that she actually had conflicts with several other dates in May and in June, and she kind of felt like she'd already given her input, so she would not be put out if the meeting was held without her. So I would propose that we hold the meeting in May for the Planning and Zoning Commission on May 31st. And if the regular time of 7 p.m. works for you all, fine. I mean, I think it might take a couple hours going through the LDR amendments. There are a lot of things there, but you guys have already at least seen it initially.
Should we make a decision on that right now?
I'd like
Does
to.
anybody have any objection to May 31st at 7 p.m.?
All right,
No.
confirmed.
We'll be here.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well,
Dan, are there any other meeting dates in May besides the workshop and the 31st?
Well, I don't think we're going to have any items that will need to be scheduled for what would normally be the 2nd and 4th Thursday. And I actually don't think we get a quorum on the 24th anyway, so.
No, that's Memorial Weekend.
Looks like the 31st will be the only meeting for May.
What is the time of the workshop?
The workshop is from 2 to 5 on May 11th.
What's June looking like? Any idea?
I haven't gotten that far yet.
Okay.
I think we may have some, though, in
May
June.
have some. Okay.
That's all that I had.
You should know better than that. Any attorneys' matters?
No.
We are adjourned.